Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures with Andy. We are out on the deck again today because we're going to do some more solar dyeing. Today we are going to be dyeing yarn for the Kim Knits July 2020 dye-along. This is the picture that she chose for it. It's an old red analog clock with a white face, black hands, on a mostly white background. And it's got, you know, the little gold copper bells and everything. So we're going to be playing with those colors today, and we're also going to be playing with time. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for this dye-along with these colors because they weren't ones that I really work with a lot. It wasn't a palette that I really would work with a lot. But then in her dye-along video, she talked about how, you know, with the pandemic going on right now, and she's at home with her husband and her kids, who she's not normally at home with, so they both have more time than normal because he doesn't have his commute home that he usually does, but she also has less time than normal because she doesn't have blocks of time during the day where it's just her for shooting videos and editing and dyeing yarn and everything. So that got me to thinking about the relative nature of time and how things feel different in different situations. So we're going to try to kind of play with that with some dye and some yarn today. And I've got Chad here with me today. He's going to help me out with this because it's going to take more than just my two hands, and because I told him that he would get to splatter some dye on some yarn, and that apparently got him really interested in helping out with this one. You looking forward to it?
Sure.
And we are still in heckin' hot stage here in North Carolina, so I've got my floppy brimmed hat on because it is way, way sunny today. What's the temperature today, Chad, right now?
It's 86.
Yeah, but what's it feel like?
They say it feels like 96.
Yeah, so there you go. That's our real feel. That's what the humidity is doing to us down here. So that will hopefully make it pretty steamy for us today to help set this dye in this yarn. Okay, so we've got our yarn wrapped around our frame again, just like we did with our watercolor paw prints yarn that we dyed. Today we are working with Dyer Supplier Nice and Round Fingering, which is a 100% superwash merino. It is 415 yards and 100 grams. This is the first time that I will be using this yarn, so for anything. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. I just wanted to give it a shot, see. Try something different. You probably cannot tell looking at the video, but this yarn is 100% dry. I have not soaked it. It has no vinegar, no citric acid, nothing in it whatsoever. I just took it straight out of the package, and Chad and I wrapped it around the frame. Because if I soak it with vinegar or with citric acid, with any sort of acid, it's going to make the dye strike faster. And what I want to do is I want to paint just circles of plain water in different spots on the yarn, and just paint a crescent of it with red and see how it spreads to the dry versus to the wet yarn. I kind of got this idea from painting watercolors because there's a technique you can use when you're painting in details where you first paint around the details with just plain water, and then you just sort of, as you paint and you drop your watercolor in, it won't go past the wet part. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work on yarn, and it's something I've been curious about and wanted to play with for a while. So that's how we're going to do the red. The black we're going to mix with some xanthan gum to make it sort of a gooey consistency, and then we'll use a paintbrush to just splatter streaks on it, sort of like the hands on the clock, which are long lines compared to the circle shape of the clock. For the back, because you know whatever I put here on the top is not going to go to the back. For the back, I've got just a plain white cloth here. I'm going to mix up some brown dye, and I'm just going to get that on this cloth, just wad the cloth up, and just tap it all over the yarn on the back to get sort of just a a mix of the white and the black, kind of like that cracked paint look on the background in the picture. So the dye that we're working with today is McCormick Food Colors. And we're going to have to mix everything up except red, because this doesn't come with brown. I don't have any black. There is McCormick's black food coloring. I just don't happen to have any. So we're going to start with mixing up some colors. First, I'm going to mix up the brown because I'm going to do that first so that I can just blotch it on and then flip it over and let that sit and not worry about it while I'm doing the red, because the red is what's going to take the longest amount of time. Okay, yes, that is definitely tan. That is the color I am wanting. Yes, that is perfect. You see? That is perfect. It's exactly what I want. All right. I'm just gonna sort of roll this up, dip this in here, and just sort of splotch it on. This will take a while, of course. Okay, next up, we need to do the red.
Mm-hmm. So that should be the easiest one for you to mix.
You would think.
One would hope.
One would hope. Okay, and this is again just plain tap water.
Mm-hmm.
I did test our tap water recently, and it is almost completely neutral. Just a hair above neutral into the acidic, like what?
Here below.
Sorry, hair below neutral into the acidic range.
You know, was it like 7, wasn't it?
Well, 7's neutral, so it was what, like 7 point?
6.8, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6.8, something like that. Okay, so to get our circles, I'm going to take the lids from these mason jars and just paint the inside of that wet with just this plain water, just to get it wet, so we've got something to work with.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a second to soak it in while I move on to the next one. Right, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to dab a crescent of the red along here. And you can see how fast it's spreading already through that wet. And that's the side that's dry. And there's very little spread. I just find that really interesting, the way that, you know, color moves through. And it's capillary action. That's just how it works. And things like this fascinate me. But you can see I'm only putting it here on this side, and yet it's almost all the way over there on that side, but it's not spread on the other side. You can see the curve from it, and I just think that's really cool. I do want some more color to this though, so I'm going to, because that's more of a pink than a red. I think I should have started with less water. So I'm going to get all artsy with this. And I've just got, this is just straight food coloring. And I'm just putting it right straight on here. And we're going to do just the straight food coloring over here with this one. Now, of course, this being superwash, it is going to strike faster than if it was non-superwash. So that can affect how this spreads as well. It's kind of interesting, that one, since we don't have the pink. The pink spread much faster on the top one than the just straight red is on our bottom one. So it's right here that there's like nothing. Let's go ahead and rinse that out, and we can get back to doing our circles. Let's see if I can't mix up a darker red just in this little bowl. So that it'll go a little bit further than the straight food coloring, but more of a red than what I've got mixed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let's see how red that gets us. Oh yeah, that's much more. And you can see how fast it spreads. It's kind of like a cherry red, like with candy. The other way I thought about doing this, and I might try it sometime, is with Kool-Aid. And I do have Kool-Aid upstairs. It's lots of packets of Kool-Aid upstairs. But I decided not to, because Kool-Aid has citric acid in it, and I didn't want to risk that affecting how it spread. But I might try this again sometime, where I just sprinkle one edge of it with the Kool-Aid. Of course, with that, since the yarn would be wet and the sprinkles would be wet, I definitely would not expect very much spreading at all. As long as we're experimenting, why not? I am just going to paint a circle with the red. Oh, I like that. That really reminds me of the clock. Holy cow, look at that one. It's almost completely filled in. That's this mixture of the red. This is our original plus just a straight food coloring. This is just a straight food coloring. And this is our new mixture with 20 drops of red and very little water. So yeah, that's wow. That is really just wow. Do after I do all this, I can flip over the back and put one of the circles of red going backwards there on the back. Oh, that could be really cool with the brown. I think I might do that. Oh, Chad's back. Let's run that idea past him.
Looks like you changed some things up.
I did. I did. And I've just been chattering to people.
Yeah?
Yes.
They chattering back?
No, they are not, which is probably for the best because we are not in a Zoom meeting or anything. I am just recording this video. And if I heard voices talking to me, I would be a little bit creeped. Ouch. Okay, so to catch you up on what we did, Chad went in to make lunch. I'm assuming he's hungry or expects to be soon.
Well, it takes a while to make, so...
It's in the crock pot now. He starts in the crock pot and just lets it go. Okay, so this is our first one where I painted the circle and I dropped in this red. And it was mostly just pink.
Okay.
I mean, it just came out, this pink that you're seeing here is kind of what it was. So I took a little bit of just the straight red food color, put it on this lid, picked that up with the paintbrush and dipped it on the sides. And you can see we got that much bolder color. This one here, I did the same thing, only just the straight food color. No mixed to dye. This one, I just did the crescent with this food color, which is 20 drops of red and just this tiny little bit of water.
Okay.
And then I took one of these lids from the mason jars and painted the back of it with the more concentrated dye mix and just stamped that all over so that I could paint them with the water and then go in and drop the color in because I was having a hard time getting my paintbrush clean. And what I was just talking about was this one here. You see how it goes off the edge?
Yeah.
I was saying that, you know, when I drop the crescent in there, we could end up with like a Salvador Dali effect. And then I thought, well, you know, I could just put the color here and let it spread that way, so it'd be kind of like time going backwards.
Okay.
But then the idea that I had was I could go ahead and do all of these with the color on this, the crescent on the left side, and then flip it over and do one on the back where the crescent goes on the right side and bleeds to the left, like time going backwards.
Yeah.
Which idea do you like better? Just going ahead and doing all of them with the crescent on the left, doing this one with the crescent on the right, or doing all of these with the crescent on the left, flipping it over and doing one on the back with the crescent on the right?
How about the latter? The last one?
The last one? Cool. Okay.
If only you could save time in a bottle.
I would stock up. I'd have like 100 cases in the basement right now, you know? Although if I could save time in a bottle, I would probably suck up the rest of 2020 in a bottle and bury it, you know, in concrete like 100 feet underground so it cannot escape and do us any more harm. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to try painting one?
Sure, I'll paint one with you. Gonna need the supplies though.
Alright, just let me finish this one real quick and then you can paint this one.
Okay.
Or
That's
however
my assigned circle.
you can do whichever ones you want, sweetie.
I'll stick to my assigned circle.
Oh, I'm not going to assign you as a circle. Don't even be like that. I will assign you a circle if you want me to assign you a circle, but otherwise, you can do whichever one or ones you want. I'm not even going to tell you you have to only do one. You do what you want.
Okay. There we go. Back to you.
You done?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah, didn't take long.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to do another one.
Nah.
Nah.
You seem to be having fun.
Well, you can have fun too. Okay, so now comes the fun part. Now, we have to mix up the xanthan gum.
Okay.
Okay, Chad, so based on your experience with xanthan gum,
Mm-hmm.
how much do you think I need for this?
Not a lot. Maybe a quarter teaspoon.
You think I don't know how much it swells up.
So you're using xanthan gum.
I am. 1/4 teaspoon.
Yep.
You wanna write that down for me? Thank you, sweetheart. Normally we use xanthan gum for baking. Baking gluten-free stuff. This, of course, is not xanthan gum that we use for baking. I separated myself out a little. Okay, Chad separated out a little Ziploc bag of it for me. What point does it stop being all goopy?
The xanthan gum, it doesn't.
No, I mean the big white clumps.
Just keep mixing.
Ugh.
So yeah, definitely a quarter teaspoon seems to be good.
Yep, for this little amount. It looks kind of like Jello.
It does.
It is not Jello, but it looks kind of like Jello.
And what colors are you going to mix in there? You got your red, right?
Mm-hmm. I do not know what the exact proportion is now because I don't know how much red is left in here. I put 20 drops in. So how much of the green and was it yellow that I needed to add as well?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so how much of that do I need? Do you remember?
No. You want me to check your chart?
Unless you want to pull up any phone. I don't know if you guys just heard that, what sounded like quacking. That was one of our frogs in the frog pond. Pretty cool, huh?
So try 8 blue and 14 green.
8 blue and 14 green. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try splattering this and see how it goes. Okay, I think this is a little too thick. What do you think?
Possibly.
It's not wanting to splatter. Let's try thinning this out some. Oh, you're going to give it a shot?
Sure, why not?
Oh, you're gonna get so covered. But you gotta go that way. You're like, but why?
Yeah.
Time moves in, no, actually time only moves in one direction.
Unless you're on the back of the screen.
That's right. You wanna wipe that up with this? I'm going to be cutting out so much of this or speeding it up because it's taken so long to get this done.
Tackle with that.
What?
There you go.
It just does not want to come off. Why don't we turn this way?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Oh, okay.
I leave it to you. It is whatever implement you want. No, you gotta go this way.
Okay, go that way.
Or we can turn it around so that you're going this way. But he is much better at this than I am.
How's that looking?
It's looking good. Keep going. I like it.
That good?
Can you get some more down here and then up along in here? Just fill in the blank spots. Does that look good?
Looks good to me.
You like it?
Sure.
You pleased with your artwork?
Sure. There you go.
Wait, you want me to?
There you go.
It actually works pretty well, but it makes a mess everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Luckily, it's just food coloring and a lot of xanthan.
Are we getting rain again tonight?
Probably. Oh, there you go.
It's a big old block.
Mm-hmm.
Blotch.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to try this one?
No, it's okay.
No, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Get every last little bit out. Okay. So now we are ready to cover this with the plastic. And I'm going to wipe up that over there real quick.
Okay.
And then just let it sit out here in the heat for a while. And no, because we have no acid, it is not going to set fully. But that is where this comes in. And then later on the crock pot. And if you can't tell from my sniffling, tree pollen's high today. Life in the south in the summer, in any of the warm months, this pollen season. Okay. Hey Chad, ready to help me cover this?
Sure.
Everything off.
What's that? You need all this off here.
Yep.
Want some more xanthan gum?
No, I think that little amount that we used was perfectly fine. More than enough. Thank you, sir.
You go this way with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to leave it like that. Now, you might have been wondering about these big black bolt things over here. I don't know if you can see them or not, but I think one of the reasons I've been having trouble getting my yarn to set when I solar dye it is that it might not be getting quite hot enough out here because I haven't been leaving it out all day. Also, used to be when I would solar dye, I would do it in the driveway on the front half of the house, and I would put a black board underneath it to help heat it up. Well, now that I've been doing this out here on the deck, I'm just doing it on the deck table, which is not black, and so it doesn't get quite as hot. So we are going to use these game mats. This is a particularly gorgeous one. This one's mine. And we're going to lay it over this.
This one too?
We don't need to if you don't want to. That one's Chad's, and I feel really guilty using his. But this should hopefully help trap more heat in here and make it get hotter while it's in here. So we're gonna let this sit at least
as long as it takes you to watch the blob.
I am not watching The Blob ever again in my entire life. It is one of 2 horror movies I will never watch again. The other one, of course, being In the Mouth of Madness. I watched that once. I will never watch it again. Terrified me. But no, probably at least a couple hours, because we're going to film the little bonus with our yarn mop, and then we're going to go have some lunch. All right? So I'll see you back here in a couple hours. Okay, so it's been a couple hours that the yarn's been out here cooking. And we're going to take this off now. It's looking pretty good. Let's take this off too. It's not particularly steamy in there because our yarn wasn't wet.
That's about to change.
That is about to change. All right, so this spray bottle is 12 ounces of water and a tablespoon of vinegar. So I'm going to spritz our yarn down with it. I'm going to flip it over, spritz that side. We'll close everything all up again and let it sit out here until it gets to be dark. I think it looks really cool, the way that the colors spread. And you can, on this side, you can definitely still see our circles and the crescent and how it's spread more toward the wet side and not really to, especially this one right here. Is that the one you did?
No, I did this one.
Okay. I was giving Biff a doubt. But you can see that, yeah, you can still definitely see the edge there where we painted it, and it hasn't gone beyond that really, but over here on this side it has. It's come out, you know, further than the circle of wet really. And over here where we had the frame giving that resist, it hasn't moved really past where I painted it. It's a little bit on this edge, but not much. So everything looks pretty good saturated, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to cover this up again. Put our black cover back over it again. Let's go ahead and tuck this under it this time. So that it definitely...
Under both of it?
Yeah, all the way around. There we go. That way it will definitely keep the moisture in there now that we've got moisture to our skein. Cover it with our black so that it will hopefully get it warmer. Okay, so we're getting ready to take the yarn upstairs, but before I did, I thought, let's take a quick peek and see how things turned out.
Well, it got steamy.
It got very steamy. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely got some heat. We definitely got some steam going on. Let's take a look at the yarn. Wow, I can smell that vinegar. Can you?
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't smell the vinegar?
No, I can, yeah.
Okay.
Took a minute.
So, let's bring the camera in closer. We can take a look at some of the breaking that we got.
Okay. Okay. The battery's almost gone, so quick.
Okay. So we got a little bit of breaking around the brown here, and a little bit around our black. You can see that our black didn't completely dissolve. That's okay. And you can definitely see, turn it this way, you can see how our crescents, how our clocks spread. And I still find it really interesting the way it worked differently with different ones, depending on whether, you know, the original with just the light red, and then the solid dye, just the straight dye, and then dye here. And very cool. So let's take this and flip it over. There's our other side. It seems like, honestly, more than the black, at least so far, more than the black, it's the brown that we had some breaking on. And you'll have to forgive the laughter and joyousness going on that you hear in the background. I'm guessing one of our neighbors has a birthday today, because a whole bunch of people just drove by honking their horns, and there's a balloon tied to their mailbox. So they're doing socially distanced happy birthday party for them, and they're all outside wearing masks and everything too. They're older, so they're being very careful, just like everybody should be. So yeah, that's how it looks so far. And now I'm going to go ahead and put some butterfly ties in there and add some extra silicone zip ties, tie these two ends together, toss it in the crock pot and let it heat up. And then once it's heated up and it's sat in the heat for a while, 20-30 minutes or so, then I'll turn the heat off, let it cool down overnight, and spend probably several hours. No, probably not several hours. Spend a lot of time washing all of this xanthan gum out of here. So, all right, but I thought you might like to see before we take it off the frame, because of course you won't be able to see it like this again. Once we do that, how it turned out so far after it steam set. So here's our finished skein. What do you think? I think it turned out pretty good. It's really easy to tell which half of the skein was on the top of the frame and which half was on the bottom. That's pretty obvious. The top got all the red. The bottom just has the one little section of red that we put on there to show time working backwards. It's also really faint, but we've got the little brown splotches all over the back, where we took that cloth and we soaked it in the tan dye and splotched it all over the yarn. It's really, really faint, but it's there. I don't know if you can really see it well on the camera. I can see it. And we've got just our little bit of black where we splotched the black on there too. got some really nice color breaking from the black there on the back. The front where we've got our red, a lot of it turned out actually more pink than red. And I think that's because of the amount of dye that I had in the water that I was putting on there. We even saw it when I was first putting the dye on there, that it was much more pink, especially as it spread. It was just spreading out more pink. We weren't getting a lot of red. We've got like some over here where we get, a real true red. And that I think is where I just took the actual straight food coloring, undiluted or anything, and just put that directly on the yarn. So we got much more saturated color there because it wasn't as dilute. But, we definitely got, an interesting visual of how that color spread and, onto the wet yarn as opposed to the dry, which is what we wanted to take a look at and see. And yeah, we definitely saw it, that you put that color on and it instantly zips right through into that wet section of yarn and doesn't really go into the dry very much as well, which is exactly what I see when I'm painting watercolors. And I do a wet glaze first because that's where I want to keep the color when I'm doing detailed sections, and you drop that color in there and it stays in the wet and doesn't go into the dry. It's the same thing that we saw here on the yarn. And it was kind of cool to see that. I want to play with that some more on skeins of dry versus wet yarn and see how they take the color up and pull it up through capillary action. I thought that was really fascinating. We've got our black specks here, splotches, not really specks so much because they're elongated, where we flicked and spun that black xanthan gum dye goop all over the yarn. We got a little bit of breaking from that, much more over here on the back, as I said. It looked really, really cool. I think it turned out nicely. It was a very interesting solar diet experiment. The yarn turned out great. I'm really, really pleased with it. I did make one mistake though. And let's take a look at our swatch and you'll see what it is. See? That's how it worked out. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It reminds me of what they call oatmeal, when not like oatmeal that you have for breakfast, but like when you get a sweater or a hat or a scarf or something and they call the color oatmeal. That's what it reminds me of, where you've got that off-white, which is the flecks of brown and black, and we got a couple of little blushes of pink, but we have no red. Because obviously I knit this from the end of the yarn, which would have been on one of the edges, not where it goes over the frame, but on one of the edges, and I didn't think to put a wet circle on the edge. I put them on the interior of the yarn. So I knit this all the way up. I got no red. This is a 35 row by 35 stitch swatch, which is what I try to do on all my swatches. And yeah, we never reached red. So I thought, okay, fine. I'm going to try knitting it from the other end of the skein, see if maybe I got some red there. So I did another swatch. And we got one pink stitch. We got a tiny little blush of pink here in the bind off, a tiny little blush here on the edge there. But yeah, all said and told, we got one pink stitch because yeah, I didn't have any red over on that side close to the edge either. So we're not going to see how this really works up until I knit something with the whole skein, because I'm not going to cut this in half and start knitting from the middle to see how it turns out. So you might notice I've still got the swatches attached to the skein because it really doesn't do me any good to keep these swatches because it's not a true representation of what the skein works up as. And that's why I keep swatches, to see how a skein works up. So my swatch for this particular skein is going to have to be whatever I knit with it. I might go crazy like I did with the watercolor paw prints skein and design a lace shawl and knit that with it. things are going really well with the shawl that I'm knitting, that I designed and I'm knitting with the watercolor paw prints yarns. So yeah, when I'm done with that, I think maybe I'll go ahead and design another shawl and knit this up with it. But y'all will have to wait until then to see how this yarn truly works up. But all in all, I think it turned out really cool. I really love getting to see how that color spread. And for me, that was the main point of it, is I wanted to play with the idea of time and see how fast it moves through the wet and how it barely moves through the dry, which is what Rebecca from Ken Knits was talking about with the way time is going for a lot of people, possibly everybody, during this time of the pandemic, where simultaneously in some ways we have more time because we're not having to travel to work, events are canceled, things like that, but we also have less time because family's home all the time when they wouldn't have been, or having to wait for things to be delivered, or whatever it may be in your particular case. So yeah, I think this was really interesting for me to do, and I think it played well with that concept. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified when I come out with a new video. That way you'll get a heads up when I finally get this worked up into something where you can see how this yarn actually looks when it's in a project. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you on our next adventure. Bye!